everybody, and welcome to the video. This video is going to be another talking video, but it revolves around a game. Now, the game I am referring to is Dungeons & Dragons. I know that might not be what some of you want to hear about, nerd stuff, but this is mostly about player characters, meaning that this can also be counted as an art video. As for the players that these characters are meant for, well, as some of you may know, I tend to enjoy drawing my friends' personas. So, with those baselines already there, and some assumptions from the group chat, I have turned their personas into D&D characters. Now, for each of their races and main classes, I already had an idea in mind. But in my mind, Mr. Blackbear was a dual class. So I took a wheel and had it decide whether or not the other would be dual classes and what they would get. Now they all ended up being dual classes, and things got a little interesting. I did try to keep the characters a good balance of keeping their personas, styles on their characters while giving them a D&D twist. Each character also has a downside to not make them too overpowered. Anyway, sit back, relax, and see who my friends' personas turned out to be. The order in which you will be seeing them was also decided by this wheel. The first victim of the wheel is Trooper Cat. Now, for rather obvious reasons, the race of Trooper Cat's character is a tabaxi, specifically a snow leopard. The class that she got is a druid barbarian. The outfit, due to these classes, didn't leave much room for me to incorporate the actual style of her persona, since I was already working around the tabaxi base structure. But other than that, I believe it came out alright. This is the result I came up with. If she wishes, the shawl that her persona actually wears can be incorporated as a cape or an over-the-shoulder scarf wrapping. It's up to her. Now, the battle axe on her shoulder is called the Malloria. The weapon itself is actually a dual jade-eyed saber, but for personal reasons of her own, we are going to be calling it Malloria. Now, you might be curious about the familiar by her side. It is a small breed of dragon called a Dukrek, which is a dragon-duck hybrid. And yes, for those of you that are familiar with some of the rules of D&D, the gold coloring indicates that yes, it's a fire-breathing duck. For the backstory and home life, I gave Trooper Cat a nice little adoption ranch that her family runs. The target creature of care on this ranch are dragon hybrids, due to it's kind of like a pit bull ranch, because dragons aren't looked at in a very good light, and this ranch is trying to show that they are big softies. The ranch is actually the reason why she would even need to go out on an adventure, because since it revolves around dragons, it doesn't get much help in funding, so any funding to go towards feeding the dragons and housing them properly, her family actually has to make. So, adventuring. Now that we've covered the basics, what kind of downside does she have? What kind of downside would make sense to combat the tabaxi speed, reflexes in sight, the barbarian strength, and the animal integrity of a druid with her fire-breathing duck? Well, it's actually the fire-breathing duck itself. You see, her familiar is only 2 years old, so it doesn't really listen to her that much, if at all, and it oftentimes wanders off. So they could be in the middle of a battle, and it could be sleeping in the middle of the arena, chasing a butterfly. And that means that her focus is no longer on the opponent in front of her, but instead on the 2-year-old she's supposed to be watching. Next up, for their D&D transformation is Chip. Doing a little bit of research, I was able to confidently make Chip a Mudborn race. Through my research, I had found that Mudborns are typically magic users, so with that knowledge and the wheel's help, the classes that were landed on are Mage and Monk. Again, with this design, I'm not too sure about the outfit matching that of the original, but in total I think it looks great. The result that now that I'm looking at it reminds me of a waterbender in Avatar, which is great since most of their magic is be water-based. This is because Mudborns dehydrate themselves every 24 hours, or else they'll die. So yeah, water magic. If you notice the reed in their mouth, it is actually their mage's wand. And no, you aren't supposed to have magical items in your mouth, but we'll get to that later. The way that the mage and the monk classes work together is entirely up to them as a player, but personally, I'm envisioning something like Avatar waterbender fighting or even Pokemon moves. But again, it's up to them. Now, for their background, I made it that due to the connection with water, Chip mostly just goes with the flow of the current. If there's a heavy rainstorm, they'll allow themselves to be swept away with the stream, and then wherever area they end up in, they'll just end up exploring. Other than that, there's kind of a lot of empty space in Chip's background. But hey, that's up to them. I'm leaving a lot of room up to them if they wish to put in more background information if they see fit. Now, let's get on to the disadvantage. And you might have heard me earlier say that Mudborns need to hydrate themselves every 24 hours. Isn't that enough of a disadvantage? No. The disadvantage that Chip has is from absorbing the magic of her wand orally. That can cause some significant problems. You see, while sucking on the wand can help keep them hydrated, it also messes with their mind, making them see and hear things and faces that aren't there. In gameplay, if one of those faces were to startle Chip per se, they could end up firing an attack and causing some either property damage or testing to see if friendly fire is on. Which it will be on. Coming third in line is Jasper. Now, for Jasper, I had to do a lot of digging and research, and although I'm not entirely sure if this is correct, I made Jasper a half-dead, specifically a ghost. Now, due to knowing Jasper, I wanted to give them the rogue class, and the wheel decided that they weren't violent enough, so they decided to give them the fighter class. Now, the outfit looks kinda basically homeless, basic and homeless, I will admit, but I figured that, they're a ghost, so they're pretty much just possessing armor in order to protect themselves. That's not to say, though, I did give them a bored expression, but do not let the basic looks fool you. There are many surprises within this character. Surprise number 1 would be their weapon, which is called Hell's Gatekeeper. It cannot be touched by the living, and when the handle's trigger is pulled, the blade is enveloped in infernal flame. They acquired this blade during their time in Purgatory, making jokes and bets with other spirits. The gamble for Hell's Gatekeeper was actually the last bet they made before being told to spend the rest of Purgatory in the living room. Clearly, someone got very upset about losing all their stuff. Now, within the living realm, Jasper as a ghost is just doing as ghosts do. Going where they want to, doing as they please, not wanting to be bothered. They are actually a regular at a particular tavern, to the point where there was a room set up for them. Jasper's character spends most of the time in the tavern, making bets with the staff as to which customers start fights or even throw up. Of course, they aren't just mooching off the tavern staff, they work there as a bouncer, kicking people out that get too out of hand. Alright, let's get into the disadvantage. The disadvantage for Jasper involves the armor. You see, ghosts can't be hit by physical attacks, but due to the armor, if the armor gets damaged, Jasper gets damaged. So, they can take some physical damage wearing the armor, but they are able to unpossess the armor and become just full ghost, which does help with stealth, but it makes their invulnerability to magic attacks go up. So theirs is basically a disadvantage of defense. And finally, we have Mr. Blackbear to finish off this transformation video. Firstly, I had to look through not D&D lore, but Mr. Blackbear's lore itself. Going based off of his own lore, his character is mostly human-based, And his lore is also the reason why I took control completely away from the wheel and decided myself that he would be a warlock artificer. The warlock is due to Mr. Blackbear being a messenger for a greater Blackbear being, and his artificer abilities are connected to his inventions. Now, before I show you his outcome, I must apologize. In order to make his D&D outfit work, I couldn't find a way to make certain aspects look good. Certain important aspects. So keep in mind when I show you the full illustration. Yes, unfortunately, the signature smile and bow tie that normally go with Mr. Blackbear had to go. It didn't match the cleric-y pasture outfit I was trying to give him, but that doesn't mean that they are completely gone. No. The smile and bow tie are incorporated just in a different part of the design that's not being worn, and they are very prominent. In fact, why don't we talk about that next by moving on to his weapon. His main weapon is a sacrificial blade. Now you see where the smile and bow tie went. The blade does have some magic prowess within it that activates on strike, presumably sending the soul to the greater Blackbear. Along with the blade, he will also have two variations of explosives. A gastric acid button timer and a nitrogen pin. Both explosive devices cause different types of explosions and after effects. While both be behind a burning sensation on the target, they are different kinds of burns. In gameplay, there would be a 50% chance of these burns affecting the target, though while nitrogen would count as actual burning damage, the acid would count as poison damage. The design of the devices themselves are based off of two of Mr. Blackbear's own characters, Gaz and Cupcake. Oh, I almost forgot. The little creatures around Mr. Blackbear are his sentient inventions. No, they are not familiars like Trooper Cat has, but they are crucial to his character. The little marshmallows are actually scattered around the town, listening in on any important information, and the bunny is the receiver of said information, which stays in the Blackbear office, which is why she looks less mobile than the others. The marshmallows have a safety mechanism in case they are discovered. Exploding. Only the body explodes, though. The head is made of durable material capable of surviving an explosion. The head that can then roll themselves back to base where they can await a new body. Mr. Blackbear carries some marshmallows around with him in case he finds a place that needs a set of ears. Now, you might be wondering why Mr. Blackbear would need ears all over town. Well, let's just say I went into Mr. Blackbear lore and tied in some Cult of the Lamb kind of feeling, to really get those of you involved and you know what's going on. For those of you wondering why he would even need to adventure, he's got a great community, a flourishing community. Well, let's just say his wife found him dipping into the community funds, because as you can imagine, having inventions that can blow up can get pretty costly. So, in order to combat that, his wife decided to kick him out of the community for a little bit until he can make his own funds. As for disadvantages, I gave him two minor itty-bitty things to worry about. Considering he's a human, he's got enough to deal with. The first one is more of a misunderstanding. Since he is dressed like a cleric, people think he's a cleric. He's not. And the second one is also with the outfit. He's not battle ready. So he does not have proper armor. He has padded armor. So he has a low defense stat. While the characters themselves are quite structured already, in order to be playable, a character sheet still needs to be filled out for them, stating what their stats are and what their actual numbers are. And I still have the job of making and fine-tuning an adventure story for them. But even with all that said, I thought this was a fun process to go through, making all their characters and designing them. The D&D basics are in place for these characters, but there are still some blanks that can be filled in by the player, as well as some secrets that I may or may not be keeping about these characters. But other than that, I hope that these characters have reached some expectations for their intended players. Now, if you're wondering why 3 of the 4 other outfits have crop tops, I don't know, I just got into a zone. That's just like, maybe in the story there will be a situation where Mr. Blackbear needs to dress down or dress less formally. I don't know. We'll see what happens. As far as these characters, there might be future videos on actual Dungeons & Dragons session, where they will get to go on an actual journey. But that is up to my friends if they want to play or not. Until then, that is going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed, and please leave a like and maybe a comment if you want to see how the adventure plans out once it's all figured out. With that, I will see you all next time. Bye!